Welcome to the Papyrus Global TV World News, where we look beyond power politics into the stories affecting communities, culture, and everyday lives across the world. Tonight, natural disasters, international policy decision, global security concerns, and humanitarian shifts dominate our coverage. Here are our lead stories. Deadly floods strike New Zealand, leaving thousands without power. Terrorism charges filed in alleged Taylor Swift concert attack plot. The European Union renews arms embargo on Zimbabwe. The United Nations calls for renewed decolonisation efforts in Western Sahara and 16 other territories. Nigerian communities feel the impact of cuts to US foreign aid. Now the stories in full. Severe flooding has struck parts of New Zealand, leaving at least one person dead and thousands without electricity. Emergency services responded to torrential rainfall across the North Island, particularly in regions surrounding Auckland and Waikato. Roads were submerged, homes evacuated, and landslides reported in rural communities. New Zealand's National Emergency Management Agency confirmed that power outages affected several thousand households as floodwaters damaged infrastructure. Prime Minister statements emphasized climate resilience planning, noting that extreme weather events are becoming more frequent. Meteorological authorities attribute the flooding to a slow-moving low-pressure system intensified by unusually warm ocean temperatures. Local residents describe scenes of rising water levels within hours, forcing emergency evacuations overnight. Climate experts warn that Pacific nations remain especially vulnerable to intensifying rainfall patterns linked to global climate change. Authorities have filed terrorism-related charges against a 21-year-old suspect accused of plotting an attack targeting a concert by global music icon Taylor Swift. Law enforcement officials say intelligence services intercepted communications suggesting preparations for a coordinated attack at a major stadium venue. The suspect was arrested before the event took place. Security agencies credit surveillance and international intelligence cooperation for preventing potential casualties. Taylor Swift, currently on an international tour, has not issued a detailed public statement, though her team confirmed enhanced security measures have been implemented across all tour locations. Security analysts note that large entertainment events remain symbolic and high-profile targets for extremist groups due to media visibility. Authorities stress there is no ongoing threat, but investigations continue to determine whether the suspect acted alone or had accomplices. The European Union has renewed its long-standing arms embargo on Zimbabwe, extending restrictions until 2027. The EU Council cited ongoing governance and human rights concerns as justifications for maintaining the restrictive measures. The embargo prohibits the export of weapons and military equipment to Zimbabwe and includes targeted sanctions on select individuals. Zimbabwean officials criticized the decision, describing it as punitive and counterproductive. Government representatives argue that reforms have been undertaken and that sanctions hinder economic recovery. European diplomats counter that reforms must be sustained and verifiable. Regional observers note that while the embargo has symbolic political weight, its practical military impact is limited compared to broader economic pressures. However, the move signals continued tension between Harare and Brussels, particularly following recent electoral controversies. The United Nations has renewed its call for accelerated decolonisation efforts concerning Western Sahara and 16 other territories classified as non-self-governing. During recent UN deliberations, member states emphasized the right to self-determination under international law. Western Sahara remains one of the longest-running territorial disputes globally, claimed by Morocco, but recognized by the UN as a dispute territory awaiting a self-determination process. The UN Special Committee on Decolonization urged renewed diplomatic engagement to resolve all stalled negotiations. Moroccan authorities maintain that their autonomy proposal offers a practical solution. The Polisario Front, representing Sahrawi independence aspirations, insists on referendum. The issue remains a geopolitical fault line in North Africa, with implications for regional stability and African Union diplomacy. In Nigeria, several vulnerable communities are reporting disruptions to development programs following reductions in U.S. foreign assistance. Affected sectors include healthcare outreach, agricultural support programs, and local education initiatives. Community leaders in northern and central Nigeria say aid-supported clinics and training programs are struggling to maintain services. U.S. officials state that aid reallocations reflect shifting global priorities and budgetary constraints. Development experts warn that sudden funding reductions can destabilize fragile local systems, particularly in regions facing insecurity or economic hardship. Humanitarian organizations are calling for coordinated efforts between federal authorities and international partners to prevent long-term setbacks in community resilience. In South Asia, Bangladesh has inaugurated its newly elected prime minister following a decisive parliamentary victory. The swearing-in ceremony in Dhaka marks a pivotal political moment for a nation of over 170 million people navigating economic headwinds, youth unemployment, and global supply chains. The new administration inherits a complex economic environment. Bangladesh remains one of the world's largest garment exporters, supplying markets in Europe and North America. However, rising energy costs, inflation, and current pressure have strained domestic growth. Political analysts say the new prime minister faces three immediate challenges: destabilizing inflation and food prices, which have directly affected low-income households, maintaining export competitiveness, especially as global textile demand fluctuates, balancing relations with China, India, and Western partners in an increasingly multipolar Asia. Foreign policy observers note that Bangladesh's strategic location in the Bay of Bengal makes it geopolitically significant. Infrastructure investments under China's Belt and Road Initiative coexist with growing security cooperation with India and Western nations. The leadership transition is being closely watched by international investors and regional powers alike. As the holy month approaches, Muslim communities worldwide are preparing for Ramadan, a period of fasting, reflection, charity, and spiritual renewal. From Jakarta to Lagos, Istanbul to London, mosques are increasing charitable distributions, food drives, and interfaith engagement programs. In the Middle East and North Africa, Ramadan also carries strong economic implications. Retail markets traditionally experience increased evening commerce, while food supply chains adjust to heightened demand after iftar hours. In Europe and North America, Ramadan has become an increasingly visible part of multicultural public life, with city councils organizing community iftars and businesses adjusting working hours to accommodate fasting employees. Religious scholars emphasize that beyond fasting, Ramadan reinforces themes of empathy, discipline, and generosity, particularly through zakat and charitable giving. Economists estimate that Ramadan-related retail activity generates billions in additional seasonal commerce globally, demonstrating how faith observance intersects with economic behavior. In southern Africa, Namibia is facing mounting agricultural stress due to delayed rainfall and prolonged dry conditions. The country's Ministry of Agriculture reports that livestock farmers in northern regions are struggling with reduced grazing land, while crop yields are projected to decline if rainfall patterns do not normalize. Namibia's economy relies significantly on agriculture and livestock exports. Reduced productivity could have ripple effects on rural employment, food prices, regional trade within Southern African Development Community (SADC). Climate scientists attribute erratic rainfall to broader shifts linked to El Nino patterns and long-term climate change trends affecting Southern Africa. Food security experts warn that without timely intervention, including drought relief subsidies and water infrastructure investment, rural vulnerability could intensify. The situation highlights how climate variability increasingly shapes economic stability in developing nations. In Vienna, Iran's foreign minister met with the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency (IAEA) ahead of ongoing nuclear negotiations. The meeting focused on inspection access, uranium enrichment transparency and compliance frameworks. The IAEA plays a central role in verifying whether Iran's nuclear program remains peaceful. Western governments insist that strengthened inspection protocols are essential for any future agreement. Tehran, however, has argued that the inspection demands must respect national sovereignty. Diplomatic analysts note that coordination between Iran and the IAEA could help build trust in broader negotiations with the United States and European powers. The Vienna meeting signals that technical oversight and political negotiations are proceeding in parallel, an important step towards any sustainable diplomatic breakthrough. Global business leaders gathered in financial hubs including Singapore, London, and Dubai this week to assess economic trends in 2026. Key themes emerging from international forums include the acceleration of artificial intelligence adoption in financial services, increased investment flows into renewable energy projects, a shift in manufacturing supply chains away from single country dependency models. Education institutions are also responding to these trends. Universities across Europe, North America, and Asia are expanding programs in digital innovation, cybersecurity, and sustainable development. Business analysts suggest that geopolitical uncertainty is prompting corporations to diversify operations, particularly in Southeast Asia and parts of Africa. Meanwhile, emerging markets continue to compete for foreign direct investment by offering tax incentives and infrastructure modernization. The takeaway is that the economic transformation is accelerating, driven by technology, climate adaptation, and geopolitical recalibration. From Geneva's negotiation tables to Pacific flood zones, from Washington's security corridors to African development challenges, these stories remind us that our world is deeply interconnected. Diplomacy influences markets, climate shapes economies, policy decisions affect communities, culture reflects politics. At the Papyrus Global TV, we remain committed to bringing you news, not just as headlines, but with context, clarity, and global perspective. Thank you for watching the Papyrus Global TV, Global World News Update. Follow us in all our social media at the Papyrus Global. Stay informed, stay engaged, and join us again for the next comprehensive briefing on the world that shapes us all. I am Christiana Babayu. Thanks for joining us.